Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. This week we're going to be working out a bunch of ideas on the melodic minor scale. This scale is used all the time in jazz improvisation in some really unique ways when playing on tunes that have a tonic minor chord. We'll start off by learning the difference between the classical melodic minor and the jazz melodic minor scales, and then learn some exercises to practice in a way that focuses on improvisation as the end goal. Then we'll learn some really cool sequencing ideas that you can immediately put to use in your solos over long stretches of a tonic minor chord. Finally, we'll combine all of this with our typical bebop language and put it to use over one of my favorite guitar standards, Wes Montgomery's 4 on 6. You guys ready? Let's get started. Despite the fact that jazz improvisation tends to borrow a lot from classical harmony, the melodic minor scale is an area where we have a bit of a disagreement with theorists. See, in classical harmony, the melodic minor scale is actually a 2-in-1. When ascending, we'll play the altered notes, that'd be natural 6 and natural 7. But when descending, they revert to their natural minor forms. If you're wondering why that happens, it really boils down to how composers treated minor harmony and melody during the common practice era of music. Now, that period spans roughly 3 centuries, from around 1600 to 1910, so it's just a little outside the scope of this video. A super brief explanation would be that ascending, the altered notes point us toward a resolution to the root, and on the way down, the natural minor notes point us toward a resolution to the 5th. As guitarists, we should be familiar with the Segovia Scale fingering for this approach to the melodic minor, since it spans the whole range of our instrument. Since we're building towards using this stuff over 4 on 6, let's play through the classical version of the scale in G minor. Personally, I think this is a beautiful scale all on its own, and the fingering that Maestro Segovia has left us is an extremely valuable technical exercise. And like I mentioned at the start, we don't really use the melodic minor scale this way in jazz. What often gets called the jazz melodic minor or jazz minor is really just the melodic minor scale played with the altered notes in both directions. So no matter if we're ascending or descending, we'll play the natural 6 and 7. Here's a fingering I really like to play the scale this way in G minor. When I get back down to the bottom of it, I'll go up and down the tonic minor chord as a 3-octave arpeggio as well. Check out how that works. This is already a fantastic technical exercise, but as you know, playing scales up and down doesn't make for particularly interesting solos. Next, let's go through some exercises for playing through the scale in a way that's more focused on how we'd use it when we're improvising. In my opinion, one of the most important things we need to learn about any scale is how to play it as 4-note chords, ascending and descending in a variety of different ways. After all, that's where a lot of our language as improvisers comes from. Let's go through the jazz melodic minor scale as both ascending and descending arpeggios across the whole range of the instrument. We should also practice doing this and resolving in different ways off the last note of each arpeggio. In this next exercise, we'll play up each chord and then resolve down a step in the scale. Then we'll do the same thing but with a pivot arpeggio before moving on to the next chord in the scale. Here's how that sounds. Something else I really like to explore when working out scales is to apply Barry Harris's chromatic concept whenever possible. Doing this lets me see where the possibilities are for chromaticism, both ascending and descending, no matter where I start in a particular phrase. If you're unfamiliar with how Barry's chromatic scale works, make sure you go watch my video on it first. It's a really versatile system, and it lets us put half steps between every note, even when there's no actual half step possible. Check out how this works when applied to the melodic minor scale. Now let's apply that system in a way that can get us thinking about using it in some improvised lines. We'll do an exercise that goes like this. Off the end of 1, we'll pivot and go up a chord and then resolve down a step in the scale. From there, we'll descend with 1 half step to land our final resolution at the downbeat of the next bar. Doing this is going to see us resolving to each note of the scale with the same melodic structure. Check out how that sounds now. This is already giving us a ton to work with when practicing using the scale over changes, but let's go one step further. In the next section, I'll show you guys a couple of different ways to sequence the scale that sound really cool when played over longer stretches of a tonic minor chord. Before we do that though, I need to give a quick shout out to TrueFire.com for supporting the channel. TrueFire is an online lesson library that's host to literally thousands of courses on a wide range of musical topics from some really amazing artists and educators. With synced notation and tablature, as well as slowdown and looping features, it's super easy to follow along no matter what course you decide to pick up. While you wait for my courses to drop, you can use my link in the description or use offer code STUDIO for 35% off at checkout, and you'll also be supporting the channel at the same time. It's never been a better time to learn, practice, and play with TrueFire. If you want more exercises like the ones we just went over, make sure to head on over to my Patreon page and grab the PDF for today's lesson. There's a bunch more variations that I don't have time to cover today, including a bonus solo etude over the changes to 4 on 6. Now, let's get back to today's lesson and check out those sequences I told you about. I've mentioned in the past that when we're playing over changes, the notes in our lines don't need to strictly match the chords all the time. The more important thing to consider when playing a good solo is actually the resolution to chord tones on a strong beat. That gives us a whole lot of time in between to play some cool sequences. That's where knowing your scales like this really comes into play. For this first sequence, we're going to go up a triad and then resolve down a step in the scale. We'll then continue that pattern through the whole scale and then take it back down again. Here's how that sounds. This is a really great sequence that you can immediately put to use over some tonic minor sounds. You can pop out of it at almost any point and resolve it in a smooth way to fit the chords of the tune you're playing. I think we should take it a little further and try playing it off the beat though. If we just shift this thing over 1/8 note and start it on the and 1, some really cool stuff happens. And check out what I mean. See? Same notes, same structure. All we did was shift it over 1/8 note, and the character of it has completely changed, and now it can lead us in some new directions in our solos. Seriously, try using this sequence next time you're playing on a tune with long stretches of tonic minor, or even a tune that resolves to the minor constantly, like you see in Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. I think you'll see some really cool results. Let's learn one more sequence before we get on with today's final etude. Now, this is one that's sort of reminiscent of stuff that I've heard my favorite modern guitarist, Jonathon Kreisburg, play a lot. And check out how this one goes. Even just sequencing the triads like this can give you some really interesting results. Like I keep saying though, the most important thing is how you resolve it. To wrap things up for today, let's check out how we can apply these ideas in combination with our more typical bebop language over a set of chord changes. Like a lot of guitarists, when I started learning jazz, I was completely enamored with Wes Montgomery. When I first heard incredible jazz guitar, I was absolutely blown away. At the time, I had never heard anything like it. And one of my favorite tunes on the record, and one of the first solos I'd ever transcribed, was his tune 4 on 6. It's actually a contrafact, or a recomposed melody on the changes to the old standard Summertime, and it features just what we're looking for to make use of our new melodic minor powers. A long swath of tonic minor. Check out this etude I wrote for you guys over the changes to see how I go about mixing the things I've shown you today with my more typical approach to bebop language. Thanks for sticking around all the way to the end of today's video. I had a lot of fun putting this one together for you, and I really hope you enjoy the material. Let me know down in the comments what the first tune you're going to use these ideas on is. There's tons of standards that have a tonic minor in them, and they're all really great places to try this stuff out. As always, if you found today's lesson helpful, make sure you give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications too. If you want to get access to a PDF for today's material, which includes some additional exercises as well as a bonus solo etude on the changes to 4 on 6, along with the whole back catalog for all the videos on my channel, you can get that for as little as $10 a month over at my Patreon page, or by just hitting that join button right here on YouTube. A special thanks goes out to Ron Maestas for being a studio fan. I really appreciate the support. An extra special thanks is due to these studio members for their support as well. PH, David Zuckerbraun, Max Irwin, Everton Armstrong, Stephen Schwartz, Aaron Walters, Stephen Prager, Louis Rosen, Zay Suarez, Michael LeBroy, Carl Jackson, David Wortman, Aldo Fonseca, Jesse Cable, Tyler Kosarek, Ron Askew, Sergei Shlepakov, JCH, Milan de Kaiser, Justin Fisher, Terry Rosenberg, Tan Sang Ho, and Jason Paul Dubois. An extra special shout out to Jazz Luminaire patrons Bill Jacob and Bebop Babadi. Thank you guys all so much for your continued support. I'm David Shore, and thanks again for hanging out with me at the studio today. I'll see you guys next time.